So let's go ahead and get into the brew for the day. So I already have my yeast hydration ready. So this is basically, I just put about half a tablespoon of honey in there. I have 2.5 ounces of the GoFerm. So go ahead, drop that in there. Give it a mix. And what this is doing, the main reason I do this is because it'll let you know if the yeast is still alive. So you drop that in there, mix it up. Go ahead, open your yeast. Since I'm only doing a 1 gallon batch, I'm going to use half a packet. Basically, one of these packets are good for up to 5 gallons. So my rule of thumb, 3 gallons or less, half a packet, 3 gallons or more, full packet. You can't overpitch it. I could make half a gallon, throw a whole packet of yeast in there, and it'd be fine. So this doesn't really matter. But this way you can serve your yeast a little bit. Put about half of that in there. A little bit more. There we go. And once we're done, I will seal this up and put it in the fridge, which will keep it good for a couple of months. But it'll definitely get used before then. And you mix this up, set it off to the side. And while you're doing the rest of the process, the yeast will start to reproduce. And they will probably make this bubble up a little bit. It'll start smelling like bread. Then you know the yeast is viable, that it wasn't dead or too weak. So then the next thing is I will go ahead and cut up the jalapenos. Now I have already sanitized these, but just to show you guys how easy it is, you just get your spray bottle of Star San solution, spray it on, and that's it. It works essentially instantaneously, especially with kind of what we're working with. Now, a lot of people will take the seeds out and try to remove the skin and the stems, but I'm actually going to throw the stems in there. I'm just going to cut them up so they're easier to remove later if I'd like. Because I don't have much that's going in here that's going to provide tannins, which is that kind of cheap puckering you get from wine. And if you have a tanninless brew, it seems kind of lackluster. So these stems will provide a little bit of the tannins, as will the skin. And whack this with some sanitizer. I'm not being super finicky about it. I just want to get it into a little bit smaller pieces. Probably just cut it into quarters, roughly. And so the brew that I'm making today is called a Capiscumel, which is a type of mead with capsaicin. So the peppers, that's where the capis comes from. So now that that's done, put that off to the side. Let's cut these in half. And cut this one up a little bit because it'll fit through the hole just fine, but that'll just make it a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and cut these into eighths. There we go. Now put that off to the side. Already got the yeast going. So now I'm going to make the must. So for this, I'm going to be using 3.5 pounds of honey, which should put it at, oh, come on scale. Let's put this, come on. And go ahead and tear that out. There we go. So yeah, I've used 3.5 pounds of honey, which if it went totally dry, it would be about 15.5%. but I want this to retain a little bit of the sweetness. The kind of, well, I mean, these are jalapenos, they're not spicy, but it'll give it a little extra something, a little je ne sais quoi, if you will. So, I have my honey here, sitting in a bucket of sanitizer off to the side. Not that the outside of the bottle of the honey needs to be sanitized, because honey itself is already antimicrobial, but when it's warm, it pours a hell of a lot easier. So I'm going to use 3 pounds of honey, or 3.5 pounds of honey, excuse me, so it's going to be a little over half this jug. So I'm going to add that in there. Okay, that pour through. That's probably, I'm going to say that's 2.5 pounds there, but just let it see here.
Okay, so a little over 3, so we'll reset it here. And that should be 3 pounds, 8 ounces.
There. 3 pounds, 7.5 ounces. We'll call that good. Now we're going to go in and get, this is just filtered water. Like I said, you can use distilled. It's just, you do want some of those minerals. So let's go ahead and get this out the way. Fill this up about halfway. Make mixing it easier. Resanitize that. Easiest way to mix up this is to stick the bung in there, put your thumb over the hole, and just shake the ever-loving hell out of it. So mixing this actually accomplishes 2 things. It mixes it, and it also, see how it foams up? That's adding oxygen into the must, which you do want for the yeast. So, thumb slipped off a little bit. Alright, so what I'm doing is I'm shaking it, and then I'll look at the bottom of it and see if I still see some honey sitting down there. Yep, so a little bit. Usually it takes about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes of shaking. That looks pretty good. Alright, now add this. Yeah, it's frothing up a little bit. I'm going to let it sit for a few more minutes and see how it goes. And while I give that a little time, I'm going to enjoy some of my mead. So this one here, as I mentioned earlier, was my Sonoran Desert Mead. It's prickly pear with agave syrup and honey. I used a little bit of mesquite honey because they didn't have a whole lot. And then more of pure and simple. Came out pretty good. It definitely did need some aging. Even just aging for about 3 weeks seems to have greatly improved it. It's Comes out pretty tasty. I think next time it needs a little more prickly pear because there's only about half prickly pear juice and the other half water. So I'll try to do it with full gallon of prickly pear juice and probably a little bit less agave. Because while it's what they call green, so when it's young, the agave does add kind of a medicinally type flavor, which wasn't the best, but most of that seems to have aged out. Let's see. Smelling like bread. So now what I'll do, I'll go ahead and pour this in. And give it another shake. So we'll give it a good shake, add oxygen to the must. And there we go. So now, I've measured on this before. There's some embossed writing, it says 1 gallon. If I go to just the top of that, that is exactly 1 gallon. Actually, should probably add the jalapenos because you're going to add a little bit of mass, increase the volume a little bit. So again, these have all been sanitized. Honey is already antimicrobial as it is, and the fermenting environment is not conducive for bacteria to grow anyway. So your chance of infection, unless you really jack it up, is already pretty low. Go ahead and add these. Like I said, the stems, the skins, and the seeds are going to add a little bit of tannins, which I would want. And top this off to 1 gallon. Okay, a lot of that's foam, that'll go down. Probably even out pretty close to 1 gallon, so call that good. And shake it up again. And now we will already sanitized this earlier, but just give it a quick spritz out. Now we're going to go and check the gravity. I'm expecting it to be about 1.17, which, like I said, would equal out if it went completely dry to about 15.5% alcohol. I'm not expecting and also not hoping that it will. I want it to go down to about 14, which would leave me about 13 or so points of sweetness. It'll still be semi-sweet, and it'll be a nice contrast in flavor with the spiciness, air quotes, from the jalapenos. Now, I did get these jalapenos from Food City, so they're probably the spiciest in town, unless I go and get them from freshly grown from someone who knows what they're doing. I do eventually want to try one of these with a little bit of ghost pepper. I think that'd be quite enjoyable. I'm a glutton for punishment when it comes to spiciness. There we go. Really just need to add it until the hydrometer bobs up, and you know what you're at. 1.113. So I'm pretty much right where I want to be. So because it's not quite a gallon, but it's pretty close. Now this has been sanitized. My hands, all the tools have been sanitized. Some people would say to throw it out, dump it. I'm going to put it back in. Why waste what'll potentially be good alcohol? But I always keep a tiny bit at the end to taste it. Tastes like honey water. Yeah, I didn't expect any of the capsaicin oils to have imparted any taste yet, but I was hopeful. Now, all I gotta do is find my bung, shove the bung in the bung hole, and stick this in the closet for a couple of days, a couple of weeks. It'll take probably, in my experience, this alcohol level, probably about 4 weeks to go through most of the fermentation. However, I will be adding the FermaidO. I think it was 1 1/4 grams, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, and then a final one at either 1 week or what they call 1/3 sugar break, which essentially is when 1/3 of the sugars are done fermenting. Then you would add the last bit of the nutrients, which is 1085, 1082, something like that. Or a week, whatever comes soonest. It's my experience, it's pretty much a week. Unless this thing takes off, which I haven't had it take off that quickly. Not a mead, at least. I've had beer take off pretty quickly. Now, let's get a little bit of this. Pour a smidge in there. A little bit more. And I have a chihuahua licking the honey off my toes. Get out of here. Silly butt. Now, the dog says hi, everybody. No, this won't be baby shower mead. It's probably going to age for at least 2 months after I ferment it. So, that's it. That's really all it takes to brew, which is why I like doing meads so much, meads and wines so much more than beer. Because my brew day was what? I started this 20 minutes ago. Fiddle-farted around for a little bit before I got the process. So it's a lot quicker to go. I do enjoy doing beers. I just don't do them as much. I plan on getting some more going. The beer I have planned, which is probably going to be a couple of weeks away still before I even get started on it, is going to be Irish Stout. So basically a Guinness clone is what I'm working on because I love dark beers. I also have plans to do what's called a Braggo or a Braggot. I'm not sure the correct way to pronounce it. I've heard it both ways. Which is a mead where half the sugar, well, 51% of the sugar's fermentable will come from the honey, and the other half pretty much will come from malted grain. So it's like a beer mixed with the mead, or mead mixed with some beer. So that's another one I do have planned. I might do a video on that here, or I might upload one to YouTube. I do plan on uploading this video to YouTube after editing my hum-ha-ha fiddle farting around out of it. So that's all it takes to make your own alcohol. Pretty tasty. Total cash put into this, about $8. Majority of that is here. I think the jalapenos were 49 cents for the 2. The yeast, I used half a packet, which is $1 a packet, so 50 cents for that. I don't even include these in the cost because you use so little of it. Water in this is basically free. So really, honey is the only expense. And like I said, you can use any sugar. You can use apple juice. Apple juice makes a really good either mead, which is called a cider at that point, or you can make an apple wine out of it. When it comes to using store-bought fruit juices, if it has potassium sorbate is the most common one I see, but any of the potassium preservatives in it, you don't want to use that because that's what we use to make the yeast go dormant. The yeast aren't going to go in it very well. If it has ascorbic acid, that's fine. In fact, it's almost impossible to find a fruit juice from the store that does not have at least ascorbic acid in it. But that's fine. Apple juice, grape juice, obviously. You can make a red wine or white grape juice. You can make a white wine out of it. Good experiment to try. Get a gallon of cheap grape juice at the grocery store, if they had any, and throw about a tablespoon of bread yeast in there, mix it up, let it sit under airlock for a week and a half. That should be about all it takes. Then you'll end up with a real cheap, real pleasant right away red wine. That one actually is better when it's green, what they call green, when it's young. It actually unimproves with age, which is interesting for a wine. Not sure why that is. I'm not a chemist. So that is about all I got. If you guys have any questions, you can always go to my Facebook group. There's Aegir's Cauldron Brewing, or Aegir's, that's how it's actually pronounced in Old Norse. Cauldron Brewing on Facebook. There's a group and there's a page. The group is open to anyone. It's public. You can post stuff on there. You can share your own recipes. You can ask me questions. I'm usually pretty good about seeing notifications. I'm on Facebook several times throughout the day, when it's slow at work, or now when it's always slow at work. So I'm pretty good about getting to those, so I'll answer your questions. You can also send me a message on Instagram or tag me in a post or something. Same thing, I'm usually pretty good about seeing those. And feel free to give the page a like, give the video a like, give Aegir's Cauldron Brewing, the page, or yeah, the actual page, a like. And if you'd like to see any other videos like this, or want me to make a brew specifically, just let me know. Alright, thanks guys, bye.